Dragon Ball and Ben 10 are two of my favorite franchises of all time, and a burning question that I'm sure many have answered before is, what if Ben had a Saiyan alien? With that in mind, just how far would he scale in terms of power in other franchise? Could he be Goku? I am Sheen, and let us try to answer all of this in this video. Hope you enjoy it. The Omnitrix is a watch that allows a user to transform into different alien species by altering their DNA, granting them their abilities and weaknesses as well as an influence on behavior. The requirements for an alien to be included in the Omnitrix is very simple. They must be sapient and possess DNA, which Saiyans are more than easily qualified for. And before diving into specifics, we need to establish some ground rules. The first point being said is that this will be a multi-part series with more videos to follow. For this video specifically, I will be focusing on 10 to 11-year-old Ben, which involves the original series, Omniverse, and the 3 movies that feature this version of Ben. As for Dragon Ball, I will be taking reference from the 5 anime series and any movies and specials with canon elements. Now, in the world of Dragon Ball, Ki is the universal power system, similar to the Force in Star Wars or Chakra in Naruto. However, since Ki doesn't exist in Ben 10, I will just refer it as energy throughout this video. It's also important to remember that not all Saiyans are the same, as some possess unique transformations and grow differently as fighters. While we will dive into these variations in the future, for now the main focus is on the most common type, which is where characters like Bardock, Vegeta, Nappa, Raditz, and Goku fall under. And the last point being said is that this video was made out of pure passion and love for these franchises, so please don't take this video seriously, this is all just for fun. While never explicitly stated within the show, there is a strong implication that Ben becomes the Chad version of any alien he becomes, or in other terms, the survival of the fittest. The easiest example that comes to mind is Bullfrag, who is stated to be what a genetically optimal incursion will look like. And if you were to compare him to what the average Joe looks like, the difference just speaks for itself. Another example is the Forums, one of Ben's most iconic aliens. And when it comes to a species, females are typically stronger than males. And yet Four Arms defeated the princess, that same princess that was shown to solo a large number of other Tetramans. And there's even an official statement into this, as Matt Wayne, a longtime writer for the series, says that any alien Ben becomes is a prime example of the respective species, but not to the context that they were enhanced. And what about Saiyans? What could possibly be a pinnacle example for the race that has no limits? We need to look at their class system, which has 3 tiers, low, middle, and the elite, which is directly tied to their power levels. In the 2014 interview with Akira Toriyama, he adds that Saiyans can be promoted to a higher rank if their power level increases enough to warrant it. This is important to note because it implies that Vegeta and his father, King Vegeta, were considered elite level when they were born, especially as they were the only known Saiyans to be in that class. But of the two, Vegeta is easily the more compelling case. He was said to have surpassed his father even as a child, and keep in mind that Vegeta did not grow up with any teachers, so all his combat training and experience was purely his own. Now you may think that was only possible because of his royal blood, but the same cannot be said for his brother Tarbo, who is canon by the way, given he was classified as a low-class Saiyan. So to answer the question and going from the credibility within the chat theory, the Omnitrix take of a Saiyan would very much use Vegeta as the basis, and no, this does not mean it will result in a literal carbon copy of him, given that the Omnitrix cannot copy what Vegeta has experienced, both mentally and physically, and that the Omnitrix will just come up with his own genetic makeup relevant to the user. We have seen this with Hawk and Vampire, for instance, when you compare them to the original sources. Now, what abilities do Saiyans have in store? Let's break them down one by one. I will also mention some number of feats, but only those that are not influenced by power-ups or outside help. The goal here is to establish the raw capabilities Ben could possibly attain. Superhuman strength. Saiyans can naturally adapt to ×10 gravity, considering that is the setting for the home planet, with Vegeta having trained up to 300 times before the Android saga. Superhuman speed. Saiyans can react at faster than light speeds, as seen when Goku countering a barrage of Frieza's death beams with only one hand. Superhuman durability. Saiyans can survive mortal wounds and could withstand planet-destroying attacks, as Vegeta endured a Kaioken x4 Kamehameha, a Spirit Bomb, and getting crushed by Great Ape, all in the same day. Superhuman endurance. Even after using techniques that require massive energy, Saiyans can keep on fighting, as with the Kaioken, Ultra Instinct, or the Final Explosion. Superhuman senses. Saiyans have enhanced sight, smell, and hearing, as seen with Goku fighting in pitch darkness. Now I'm going to put these at the same category, but heat resistance and powerful lungs. Saiyans can withstand hot environments, fall from orbit without suffering any burns, and even battle in the outer stratosphere. Okay, yes, oxygen does still exist there, but the important part is just how they handle it. Technique replications. Saiyans can instantly copy moves even after seeing them just once, as Goku learned the Kamehameha in moments, something which took Master Roshi 50 years to master. It's also worth mentioning that Goku also imitated the Hakai, a technique that can kill anyone unless they're immortal, although it was an incomplete version. Energy manipulation. This is something all Saiyans have a talent for, and with that they can do the following: fire energy blasts, beam attacks, sense energy, transfer their energies to other beings, amplify themselves with energy, create energy constructs, shields, weapons, or even replicate the moon if you have to, fly, and to a degree, telekinesis. Now going into the more Saiyan exclusive abilities, let's talk about Saiyan power, which is basically the most busted aspect of Saiyans as to why they constantly evolve through battle, which goes with the following: rapid adaptation. Saiyans can improve in the heat of the battle, overcoming weaknesses in their own and opponents, basically crack battle IQ. There's also Zenkai boost, which if a Saiyan recovers from a near-death experience, their power skyrockets, though the exact increase is never consistent. And there's limitless potential. Like I said before, Saiyans don't really have a limit. Do you really think they're going to be stopping at the ocean forms? Come on now. Now let's go over their transformations. Great Ape. This is something that all Saiyans have by default as long as they have a tail and look at their full move. Super Saiyan, which is a 50 times multiplier, and this is triggered by having a certain amount of Essos, which I don't think the Omnitrix will have a problem with if we're considering a chat Saiyan here, and also an emotional distress, typically anger. Under Super Saiyan, there are the Super Saiyan grades. There's Super Saiyan 2, which is pretty much better than Super Saiyan in every way possible. And there's Super Saiyan 3, which while it is more powerful, it does put a strain on energy. To unlock Super Saiyan 4, you basically need to have a good understanding of Super Saiyan and Great Ape. Once you have those two together, you get Golden Great Ape, and then once you conquer yourself in that form, and that's basically how you get Super Saiyan 4, or in Daima, where it's kind of implied to be a direct continuation from Super Saiyan 3. Yeah, I know. Then there's also Super Saiyan God, which can be achieved without the ritual, considering how Vegeta got it. And above that, there's Super Saiyan Blue, which will have stamina issues early on, but it can be negated by further mastery. I do want to mention that Raffle and Super Saiyan Blue evolution are potentially other forms Ben could attain, but the specifics of these forms haven't been fully explored, so I won't go them here. And just in case anyone is confused, no, Ben cannot achieve Kaioken or the Ultra forms, since they were not invented by Saiyans. Now that we have a rough idea for what an Omnitrix takeoff a Saiyan will be like and the abilities they would have in store, it is now time for us just to scale just how Ben would fare with this alien in mind. And before diving any further, we need to have the following things set in mind. For the sake of consistency, I'll be referring to this Saiyan alien as Tenku. Of course, if you got a better name in mind, please feel free to share in the comments. I would really love to hear them. While Ben can only stay as an alien for 10 minutes, we will assume that a Ben 10 fight will play out similarly to a Dragon Ball fight, and trust me, the time limit is the least of our concerns. And we'll be giving Tenku a starting power level of 10,000 based on the assumption that the Omnitrix will grant Ben an elite level Saiyan. As we discussed in the chat theory, this puts him roughly on par with Bardock's power level from the Father Goku special, and below Vegeta, who was at 18,000 when he first debuted. Now, for the original series alone and Kevin review, there are 4 characters who can offer a challenge for Tenku. Without wasting any more time, let's get started. The first opponent is Tech Truck Shard. who would present a unique challenge for Tenku due to his immense durability and combat experience. Assuming Tenku's durability is on par with Diamond Head, he should be able to withstand attacks strong enough to launch someone from a planet to its moon, something Tenku will likely struggle to achieve, especially this early in the series. Additionally, Saiyans tend to rely on brute force, which Tetrux could counter just as he did with Diamond Head by using only one hand. So in this matchup, Tetrux takes the win, but not for long. The second opponent is Kevin 11, who as an Asmodean possesses the ability to absorb various forms of energy. However, when absorbing DNA, he only retains 10% of its original power. This does offer an interesting scenario when you consider that Saiyans are genetically compatible with humans. But I'll set this concept aside for now. Taking the limit into account, if we had Tenku sitting at a power level of 10,000, Kevin will be getting 1,000 flat. So ultimately, Tenku easily takes the win here. Now, you could factor in the grade A multiplier, which could help Kevin overcome the limit, but the problem here is that he will likely struggle to control such immense power, especially if it's going to be his first time tapping into Saiyan power. Tenku, on the other hand, could just do the same thing, and plus he would have a better control over it. By Kevin's second appearance is where things change significantly, as he has learned to fully integrate into alien DNA. And unlike before, it's fair to assume that the 10% power limit does not apply here, considering how he was fighting Ben on equal footing in this form, thus making this fight actually have a case argument for either of these two coming as the victor. When it comes to Kevin and applying Dragon Ball logic, he has the advantage of not having a time limit, but also higher growth potential, considering how Saiyans and humans can result in a stronger offspring. Whereas for Ben, he simply has the better experience in being a Saiyan. But remember earlier when I said that the time limit is going to be the least of our concerns? Well, 2 episodes later, it was revealed that the Omnitrix can recharge instantly if their user's life was in danger. So with all being said, at a raw fight, it's gonna be a stalemate, though I'm gonna give Kevin the edge here because with the hybrid boost, it would place him at a higher power than Ben would, but I wouldn't suspect at a drastic level. But in a longer fight, it's definitely going to be Ben with the Zenkai boost coming into play, which would put him at a level where Kevin just won't be able to achieve, especially as he would not have any means to recover, as that's also another criteria to getting the Zenkai boost. In Kevin's next mutation, he essentially becomes a fusion of the original 10 aliens, now with Saiyan DNA added to the mix. This form allows him to stack multiple abilities at once, although per official statements, he is still limited to using only 10% of each power individually. Despite the 10% power handicap, Kevin remains incredibly strong in this form. He was able to push forearms into a corner, the same forearms who cracked the shell of an alien that survived the destruction of multiple planets. Additionally, Kevin was strong enough to damage Diamond Head, who withstand a factory explosion at close range, and took multiple hits from an enraged forearms without shattering. Based on these feats, Kevin's raw strength should scale somewhere between small building to multi-city block level. Now, bringing Saiyan DNA to the equation would very much do a lot of favors for Kevin's overall abilities, offering more than just raw power. And even though Kevin wasn't shown using certain aliens, let's go ahead and bring them into play. Say he combines the following abilities: Gray Matter's Intelligence, an alien that's smarter than Brainstorm, who has an IQ of 1 non-alien. Just 10% of that will be 100 octillion. That's essentially about 500 septillion Leonardo da Vinci's, which we could then also stack in the Battle of Kyo of a Saiyan and Ghost Ray Intangibility to perfectly time when to evade such attacks, of course still at 10% capacity. Overall, this matchup isn't just about power, it's about who can come up with a better strategy. On paper, Tenku is in a whole completely different league. With the Zenkai boost gained from their last battle, his raw power and combat efficiency are likely far beyond than what Kevin can match through brute force alone, especially if he got weaker due to the 10% limit. But the thing is that Kevin doesn't need to overpower him, he just needs to outplay him. With the wide range of abilities to choose and stack from, Kevin can create some busted combos, as with the intelligence combo said earlier. As one key advantage Kevin could exploit is the Omnitrix recharge window between transformations. However, with Tenku having full access to his Saiyan abilities, especially with his instincts and combat IQ, he can also just exploit Kevin's strategy and adapt it before it's too late. In the end, it's a classic case of an unstoppable force meets an immovable object, so really, take your pick. The third opponent is none other than Viljax, this franchise's most iconic and persistent threat, but the version we will be focusing on is the cybernetically enhanced form, as that was the only version of Vilgax that Ben has faced within the series. let's go straight into the power scaling. Viljax in this state was shown to produce small earthquakes, manhandle Kevin 11, pierce pain to Waybick's skin, catch and accelerate running at full speed, immunity to heat blast flames, shatter diamond heads, survive a nuke at point blank range, endure the vacuum of space without gear. These last two weren't shown. He is stated to have destroyed at least 5 planets and involving the creation of black holes. Based on these feats, Vilgax goes anywhere from city level to potentially as high as large star level, depending how literal you take the last two statements. But in the end, Tenku still takes the win, and here's why. Accelerate's top speed in the OG series clocks in around 500 miles per hour, which is fairly impressive, until you remember that even Kid Goku could dodge bullets moving upwards of 800 miles per hour, if we apply real life logic of course. And Tenku is the Saiyan with the best genetics in mind, putting his speed and reaction time multiple times beyond that. And we don't even need to get into the strength side of things since Saiyans are boundless in this regard, but if we were to take Vilgax's planet destroying feats as literal, it would certainly have given Tenku a run for his money. The next time Ben faces Vilgax, he teams up with Kevin 11, but this is also the time when Ben has gained access to Master Control, though only for this fight, which removes the time limit and can switch to any alien he desires through pure thought. That alone would open the door to countless strategies and combinations, making this fight actually unpredictable on both sides. Now, with time no longer acting as a restraint, the battle would actually shift in Tenku's favor, not because the fight becomes easier for him, but because the constant pressure from two of his most powerful enemies would force him to adapt and evolve mid-battle, especially with his limits being tested down to the T. Unless of course Vilgax brings up a black hole, Kevin goes apeshit, then we're talking scorched earth for everyone involved. I wanted to say that originally I was going to bring up Dr. Animal and Hex, but the reason why I chose to neglect them is because their abilities are unpredictable, where literally anything can happen. I mean, magic is one thing, but how can you scale a guy that can turn a frog into a kaiju monster? Can you imagine the things he could do with Saiyan DNA? It's a whole can of worms I just did not want to deal with, which I hope you understand. But anyways, let's move on. The fourth and final character is Sir Driscoll, but the real challenge here is not him directly, but rather the source of energy that powers his armor, known as sub energy, which has only two major statements in the show: that it's 20 times more powerful than the sub, and that it could destroy an entire continent if left unchecked. Now, whether Tenku himself scales to 20 times the sun is honestly a very big stretch, because it's never directly quantified how much of that energy is Driscoll outputting in the fight. But here's what we do know. Ben doesn't face Driscoll to the very last episodes of the series, which by this point we have overcome Vilgax and Kevin, and Tenku should have been proportionally higher in power than he was initially. And the funny part is that Tenku doesn't even need to overpower the sub-energy itself, as Ben used upchuck to rip out the power core and launch into the sky, which Tenku could just do the same. But even if Driscoll is outputting the full power of the sub-energy, Tenku should still be able to tank it, because by the Saiyan saga, Vegeta with a power of 18,000 tanked a Kaioken x4 Kamehameha, an attack that was stronger than his own planet-busting Gallic gun. And Tenku, this late in the series, is easily beyond that level of power. From start to finish in the original series, Tenku's growth as a Saiyan is nothing short of explosive. If you were to assume that he started with a power level of 10,000, that alone could reasonably place him in planetary level. But once you factor in all the battles we just discussed, even the ones I haven't even covered, it's not a stretch to say that he would have skyrocketed well beyond 1 million, and honestly, it's not too out of the gate, given that Goku went from being over 8,000 to over 3 million in just over a month during the Namek saga, which we could now say that pushes him to being small star level at his peak. Let's go to destroy all aliens, in which by the end, Ben fights an evil version of Waybick. Since this transformation occurred due to the Omnitrix, I am just going to assume that he is just as strong as Ben's version. Now, Waybick is considered to be Ben's strongest alien from the original series, and let's go over some of his feats. With a single stomp, he can cause tremors that are an equivalent to a 7.0 magnitude earthquake. He can shoot cosmic rays that are strong enough to destroy a small planet, and Waybick is way beyond Vilgax's league. He threw him into space like a baseball, and he can also withstand the extreme condition of space. Taking all these into account, Waybick easily scales from small planet level at least. And while Tenku may have the power advantage, the issue here is having to deal with somebody that is multiple times beyond their height. But ideally, this is where the Great Ape transformation comes into play, which is definitely possible because this fight took place at night. Doing so will make Tenku not only much stronger than he already was, but he would very much bully him down to the T. Now, let's shift our attention forward to the Omniverse flashback flashbacks, where we now have an 11-year-old Ben. Only one character truly stands out as an actual challenge, but before diving into that person, there were two other contenders that deserve a mention, those being Durfer Malware and Eon, which fall into the same category when it comes to having broken abilities. When it comes to Malware, who's basically the Broly of Galvanic Mechamorphs, he absorbed the Tachyon Cannon, a weapon that is capable of erasing anybody with DNA on a subatomic level and within a 100-mile radius. And he can also just physically rip apart Ben from the alien that he's transformed into, just like he did it with feedback. Whereas Eon, who's actually an alternate version of Ben, who has chronokinesis, has the power to age an opponent into dust in a matter of seconds. So yeah, it is easy to see why these two characters will be a guaranteed loss for Tenku, given that Saiyans possess DNA, which is like quite literally one of the biggest selling points of the Omnitrix, and that they age just like humans do, but slower. Now, the only one from the Omniverse flashbacks that can actually provide an actual genuine challenge for Tenku is Kevin yet again, except this time with a superior batch of aliens, and let's break down some of what he's working with. There's Waybeg, which we have already discussed his feats, with him at least being small planet level, and if you were to do the math, 10% of that would roughly put Kevin at around moon level. Then there's Upchuck, who has the ability to eat literally anything, including the sub-energy core we have discussed earlier, and he can also take what he consumes and redirect it back as an explosive blast. Now, I had a really hard time trying to figure out what 10% of this ability will look like, but let's just say he has a 10 times harder time processing what he consumes. And the last alien that is worth mentioning from this set is Ditto, who has the ability to clone himself to no end. Now, it's implied that Kevin can use his ability as well, so I guess if we just say that his clones are just 10 times less durable, if not also weaker. Now let's add Saiyan DNA. If Tenku ends the OG series at a power level of 1,000,000, Kevin absorbing 10% of that will give him a solid 100k, which that alone would put him now at large planet level. But we're not done yet, because that 100k only applies to its Saiyan side. When you start to factor in the other 10 aliens, especially Waybeg, we're looking at much bigger numbers, though I wouldn't exactly say 1,000,000 just yet. And regardless of the power gap between Tenku and Kevin, by using Upchuck's abilities to absorb high-end energy blasts, you could have Kevin operate at much higher outputs, potentially surpassing Tenku himself. So now, how would this fight actually play out? Honestly, this is probably the most evenly matched yet, as one side you got Tenku, who has had a full year of an experience on being a Saiyan, and all those Zenkai boosts to help him explode to higher yield. On the other side, you got Kevin, who can not only tank, but also redirect attacks above his weight class, as well as overwhelm with sheer numbers thanks to Ditto's cloning, even if each copy is much times weaker. If Tenku sticks to close quarters combat, he could definitely pin down Kevin to a corner, but the thing is that Kevin could just spam in more clones to keep him in the game, forcing Tenku to stay on the defensive. But the real tipping point is when you start to factor in energy, because the moment Tenku fires off anything, whether it be an energy field or an explosion, Kevin could just absorb it and throw it back even harder, or even amplify that energy for himself. So just like the second fight in the OG series, feel free to take your pick. Now that we have broken down Tenku, how he stacks up from the original series through the Omniverse flashbacks, it's now time to us to scale him now within the world of Dragon Balls. By the end of the OG series, we had Tenku with a power level of 1,000,000. However, with given that Ben's aliens do get stronger by the time he ages, it's fair to apply a natural progression bonus, so we'll give him a 10% increase after 1 year. On top of that, given this intense battles of Evil Waybeg and Omniverse Kevin, that would certainly have made Tenku push beyond his limits. Since I'm a nice guy, let's just give him a 75% Zenkai boost across those encounters. With this, Tenku would very much breeze through the majority of the Namek Saga up until Final Form Frieza, specifically at 3% of his power. If we apply Great Ape, which would push him now to 18.5 million, this would put him above a Kawakin x6 Namek Goku, or just about 30% of Final Form Frieza. Now, personally, I chose not to give him Super Saiyan and save it for the next part, but if we do bring it up, he would be sitting at 92.5 million, which is more than a Kawakin x 20 Goku, or just about 77% of Final Form Frieza. So if Ben had a Saiyan alien, it would certainly make a lot easier for him to get through a lot of opponents, especially the ones that I didn't even cover in this video. But when he does go against somebody who can actually provide him a challenge, he is not going to walk away unscathed, and that's the beauty of it, because every tough battle will only push Tenku to evolve and rise to an even greater height, which is quite literally one of my favorite parts of Dragon Ball. Look at Goku. When we were first introduced to him, he was just a child raised in the mountains living alone, to now a warrior that made the gods stand up for him out of respect. It is just quite insane just thinking about that. And while we are on the subject, yes, you could potentially say that Tenku could be Goku, as long as we're talking about one that hasn't unlocked Super Saiyan yet. But again, this is just hypothetical speaking. As for the next part, we will shift our focus to Ben from the events of Alien Force, so stay tuned for that. If you guys agree or disagree with anything I said, please feel free to share them down below in the comments. If you guys like what you saw, consider hitting the subscribe button and smash that bell so you don't miss a video. Otherwise, stay shining, take good care, and see ya.